I grew up in Chicago, and I always was into cars. And I always figured I'd be an engineer somewhere, and hopefully GM. My dad and my grandparents, my grandfather, I should say, was tool and die makers at International Harvester in Chicago. And then when International Harvester closed, moved down to Nashville, my father got a job at Electromotive Division, which was part of General Motors at that time. It was in McCook, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. So I was going to school at the University of Illinois to be a mechanical engineer. And he got me a job one summer working as an intern at Electromotive Division. So as part of that, they took a bunch of the college students that were working for GM in summers at the time, and they had a program up at the Tech Center. So we got in an airplane in Illinois, in Chicago. That was the first time I was on a plane. Flew us up to Detroit, took us through the Tech Center and Milford Proving Ground and all that. So that's where I figured, yeah, I gotta be, GM is where to go. So I interviewed, and they gave me a job. I started at the Proving Ground in GM. Worked there until 1977. And I wound up in the emissions lab at Milford. And that I felt was a dead-end job. So in order to get ahead, I actually took a job at Ford for a couple of years and was an engine engineer there. We were working on what they called dual displacement engines, believe it or not, at the time. 6 cylinders, the straight 6 that they had running on 3 cylinders. So I did that for a couple of years, and then wound up getting a job with Rochester Products back at Milford. So got in there working on carburetors, and that led us to, they had this thing called a Verijet, which wasn't a very good carburetor, but Rochester Products came up with it, and we were trying to do it as a replacement for the 2GC Rochester, the 2-barrel. So we had a Cutlass 350, I think it was, with one of these Verijets on it. So they brought us up to Lansing to try to show it off. And it was Vic and a few other guys there, and they were just, Bob Rich, they weren't impressed, which was the right answer, you know, because that wasn't a very good, it was a variable venture.
But they used that Verijet on the 2.8 V6.
Well, yeah, something, but Oldsmobile was smart enough to say no problem.
Okay.
So that, and then another friend of mine from the Proving Grounds, Craig Berland, had gotten a job at Oldsmobile. So after I was up there in that, I actually wound up working for Oldsmobile in 1978 in the engine group, engine development. And come to find that after all the places I had worked, Oldsmobile was definitely the place to be, I thought. It was a great place. The people were all great there. Everybody treated everybody with great respect, and everybody was trying just to do the right thing and make the car as good as they could make it, which, you know, what else do you want to do? So then along came 1984, right? Roger Smith, the beginning of the end of Oldsmobile. They got rid of all the divisions, right? All the guys were powertrain now that were Oldsmobile engine. And if you plot General Motors output from 1984 to when they went bankrupt, went one way. It just didn't work. You know, we got sued for putting Chevy engines in Cutlasses and 88s. And, you know, people knew that this wasn't an Oldsmobile anymore.
There was, if I can interject just a little bit, there was this drive towards front drive everything.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically, I'm maybe a little fuzzy on the date, but it may have been 1983. I saw you in engineering, and I said, Dennis, what the heck is General Motors doing? And you said, and I have quoted you many, many, many times, General Motors is in the business of going out of business. And that was in 1983, and it took them, 20 years to finally succeed in going bankrupt. And I've had people say, oh, Ted, you're nuts. General Motors is way too big to go bankrupt.
Yeah. But people saw through it all. But that was the beginning and the end.
And we fought it tooth and nail. And
Well, this is where I'm going with the story. This is why I bring it up. Because then I had a decision to make. They came to me and said, well, who was the young guy at the time that was kind of a cripple? He was heading up GM, Olds Powertrain at the time. The young guy, I can't remember his name right now. You remember who I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, he came to me. He was the lead engineer, head engineer, whatever you want to call him. And he tried to get me to stay to keep working on the Quad 4 there because 87 or 84, 85 is when they were inventing the Quad 4. It was being developed and went from being a 2-liter to a 2.3 because these guys had a 2-liter and these guys had that. And I remember Dawson sitting in a meeting. Well, yeah, the Chevy's got the 2-liter this and Pontiac's got the 2.5 that. We'll make ours 2.3 and just go ahead. And that's how it got to be a 2.3.
No kidding.
Yeah. That's how it got to be a 2.3 liter. But anyway,
Miles.
So I had to make a decision, and Jim Dawson, who I finally went to work for, and Ted Lucas, they split like the engineering this way, and then Olds was just going to become, quote, a marketing group. So it was like go from engineering to marketing. So in 1984, all the divisions remained as only, quote, marketing groups. And all the engineering went either to the vehicle engineering or powertrain engineering. So I went with Dawson and Lucas. Porterfield did also. Vic did also.
That's right, yep.
And so what were we? We were a bunch of engineers in, quote, a marketing group. So Lucas and Dawson, I guess I don't know which one. It was read to me that what we're to do, Vic and I and Bill, Oldsmobile was always like the innovative division. He said, okay, so now it's up to us, this small group, to make sure Oldsmobile remains an innovative division. So what are we going to do to innovate? Okay. So Porterfield had a bunch of ideas. I figured we ought to do the motorsport stuff, because that's where I was at the time. Ted and I, we built first that Camaro that's sitting over there, and then what did we build? A Calais and a Tornado, right?
Built the Calais next in 84, 85, raced it in 85.
And we were getting sponsored by Oldsmobile.
Oh, well.
All the parts we needed and, small amount of cash. So we were running the IMSA Kelly American Challenge with the Camaro and then the 2 Oldsmobiles. So that's what Dawson agreed to. He says, yeah. So I got kind of the motorsports and Porterfield got the innovate stuff. Well, he found a lot being Porterfield. So one thing he dumped on me was all-wheel drive. See, because that's one thing that we all thought of. The Tornado was big because it was the first GM front-wheel drive and first, mass-produced, really, because the Cord and stuff was ahead of it. And the Citroen was even before that. But anyway, we thought all-wheel drive is the next thing. So he had found a couple of people that were potential suppliers. So I went after that, and we finally went on a couple of trips. We went to England, Ferguson Formula. That's what it was, FF. And they were using viscous couplings, GKN viscous couplings. And so we went to a couple of places in England. And then thought of Porsche. So we went to Germany, talked to the Porsche people. Actually wound up with 2 programs at Porsche. One was all-wheel drive system, where they actually wound up designing an all-wheel drive system using a Wolfram differential, which one of is up there next to the Jaguar bag. And it's interesting, a Wolfram differential was invented during World War II to arm Nazi bombs.
Oh, no kidding. Is it similar to a Torsen?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
But is it mechanical?
Yeah, it's all mechanical,
Oh,
which
be darned.
I still believe is the only way to properly do an all-wheel drive or anything like that. But anyway, they came up with that, and the idea that I thought Porsche had it was Porsche approached it not like how do you get out of a ditch, how do you pull a plow, that's what Ferguson, all these guys were, just how do you keep power to all four wheels, which really isn't what you want. And what you want is something that improves the stability and the handling of a car. And that's what we were after. Porsche came up with the idea that what you always wanted under any conditions was 3% slip, more slip at the front wheels than the back. That ensured stability, and it also ensured you could steer the car out of any problem. And if you go back, people 60, 70, 80 years ago knew this. Because when they built pickup trucks, they put a 410 in the front and a 411 in the back.
Oh, okay.
Right? You often wonder that. So the front wheels are always going a little faster so you can still steer the thing.
Okay.
So they came up with that Wolfram differential. That's one of the things. I got a big binder there. It shows all the vehicle dynamics plots and things they went through. So I spent a lot of time going back and forth to get that developed. And we actually did build. We sent them a 98 touring sedan. And it got built up with that complete all-wheel drive system. Then we showed it around, and naturally, everybody, it was the typical, you guys are a marketing division, what the heck are you doing,
Oh, okay. You're being innovative.
Yeah, so we had that all done, but that didn't go anywhere. So also being in the racing thing and the Quad 4 stuff, I got them into building a race engine out of the Quad 4. And so Porsche was pretty concerned about that because they were running GTU engines and things like that, 2-liter engines. So it was kind of like
Competition.
Well, yeah, and so we got it down to SCCA had this international sedan thing going at that time. So we turned it into, okay, design us an engine for the international sedan series. So they did, and I got a flywheel that came up out of that, but Porsche designed a bunch of parts. And then we took them to the machine shop at Olds. And Olds took all the drawings and built the parts. And so that was the start of rocket parts. Okay, that whole thing. And I think I got some of their catalogs and stuff over there. That's why I wanted to dig that stuff out. So we basically started with the Quad 4 because that was the new engine. And again, it was an Oldsmobile innovation. It was only from Oldsmobile. It would have been just for Oldsmobile, except now that powertrain was for like all of GM. Chevy and Pontiac got the thing too, so we needed to make it our own, so the showroom stock thing kind of started. So Oldsmobile Motorsports, my part in it really started with the Quad 4. And there was another group that I became the head of once this happened that was already doing like NASCAR and drag racing and doing extremely well with that stuff. And that's why I told you we should get Arlen to talk to him, but I haven't heard anything back from Arlen.
Okay.
Because Arlen started there like in '82, and he was a drag racer, a very good drag racer. And he came out of Ford. He was working at Ford most of his early life. And so he knew everything there was to know about the Ford engines. He had flown a windshield across to Le Mans, for the GT40 program and things like that. But anyway, and he was a national champion, NHRA Superstock national champion with a 302 Maverick in the early 70s even.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, he was a big drag racer. And through that, he knew everybody in racing. You could go anywhere, IndyCar, NHRL, Sprint Car, anywhere, and he knew somebody.
No kidding.
Arlen knew.
Sounds like a Mauer.
He knew everybody. And so that's why, Dave Gerard, who was running the motorsports group before me, he got Arlen involved, which was a really good thing.
Okay. But at that point, Arlen was an independent contractor?
He was a contractor,
Okay.
yeah, all the time. I never was able to get him to be an employee.
I'll be darned. Okay.
And that's what Vic hated. Vic hated Arlen.
No kidding?
Oh, he hates
Oh,
it. So don't bring up Arlen around.
okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, do you think Arlen might be?
Oh yeah, it's reciprocal. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So anyway, that was the group I kind of inherited. It was Arlen and Dick Haas was there.
Oh, Dick Haas, man. I haven't heard of him in a long time.
Frank Ball was still there, and who was the one before him? I can't even remember now. But anyway, they were doing the NASCAR thing, and they had Olds V8 done up as a NASCAR engine in that, but that wasn't going to fly. You know, it just never made sense. So anyway, we started with the Quad 4 stuff, and when was it, 87, we built the black cars, the black Calais, the first 200. Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, 1987, we
Okay.
built, I think, 200. Again, it was a pull ahead, and we got a couple of them and a couple of other cars. And the first step in this whole thing was I got Del Markle involved, because Del built the chassis for our IMSA cars.
Calais and the Tornado.
And he had a shop here in Fowlerville. So I got Del involved, and he thought this was silly working on showroom stock stuff, but he needed a job, so he was all right with that. Because he was used to, IMSA GTO cars, IMSA American Challenge cars, doing that kind of stuff. So a 4-cylinder front-wheel drive car was. But anyway, we thought, that's our engine. That's the thing to put us on, and we could prove it in motorsports. So the first thing I wanted to know was, could it be proven in motorsports? So we got like Scott Hare and Irv Hare. Irv was running our Trans Am cars for Dick Haas and doing extremely well with that. So we had 2 good drivers there. And we got 2 cars with the Quad 4 engines in them, 2 Calais, and took them out to Grattan here. And over 3 days, we put 24 hours on them. Those guys driving them around the track as hard as they could.
Wow.
And we burned up steering racks, and we failed this, and we failed that, and we ran the rear bearings off them in about a half an hour. And so we came back and said, well, is this really a good idea?
Later, we took the cars to Lime Rock, Del and you and I.
Well, that was after that. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, that was after that.
Okay. All right.
That was for some of the not the hot rod, road and track challenge stuff.
Oh, okay.
Right, which is another story in
Okay.
itself.
All right.
But anyway, so we got with the production guys and pointed all this stuff out. And so they were very concerned about, how hot the exhaust was getting. And seriously, it was melting the boots and the wiring and everything on the steering rack. So they took a look at that and agreed there was some stuff they could do there. And then Ed Magner is the guy who came up because he was racing front-wheel drive stuff. He was putting the A-car bearings on the Calais, which was a bigger bearing. That was the old Sierra and stuff like that. So we got with IMSA and said, we'd like to run these cars in the Firestone Firehawk. And that was the 160 horsepower cars at that time, just the first cars. So we were wound up in the touring class, the lowest class. Mm-hmm. And we told them, look, we got a safety problem, though, with the cars. And we went through all this data we had with the bearings and stuff like that. And we showed them that, these things, they're heavier. They're not a performance improvement. They're doing nothing to improve the performance of the car, but they're going to keep the wheels on, which we think is important. And that's important to your series, too,
Yeah.
So they let us do that. So they said, okay, that's an approved modification for the cars.
Okay.
So now we thought, okay,
Did that come with larger rear brakes?
yeah, it came with larger rear brakes, but one of the rear wheels was off the ground all the time anyway.
Okay.
So you couldn't use the rear brakes anyhow.
Okay.
And they agreed to that, so that was no, again, performance improvement. So I got thinking, well, who's the best front wheel drive racers around? And that was the Hackers. All right, they called themselves the Hacker Express. I think, not Paul Hacker, it was just Paul Hacker. They called their team the Hacker Express, and it was Paul and his brother Carl, and they were running Volkswagens, the Rabbits at that time, and they were doing extremely well, winning the whole thing. So we got in contact with them, and I worked out a deal with them, which they thought was really good, but was really also good for Oldsmobile because it wasn't a lot of money. And we just basically told them, we'll supply you cars, engines, all the parts you need. You guys run the cars and we'll give you this amount of money every year. And that was a lot better deal than they were getting with Volkswagen, so they signed on right away. And they were kind of unsure too of the Kelly, but that again was, okay, we got them the cars, we got this, and we started racing, and son of a gun, we did pretty well with that. So while we were doing that, I had Davey Evaldi working for us as a student out of MSU, and we gave him the assignment to come up with a cheater camshaft. Okay, because it's like everybody was cheating, and we were looking ahead with the 180 horse engine, the high output engine that they were coming out with, that powertrain was coming out with. That was going to move us up a class, and we're going to wind up running against the Rossi, the Mitsubishi supercharged cars. Now, a supercharger is just a license to cheat, right? I mean, there was no way IMSA could understand how much boost those guys were running at any time. And obviously they were running all the boost they ever wanted anyhow, because it was interesting. We took data down at Sebring. They were running 127 miles an hour at the end of the straight at Sebring, okay? I think the top speed quoted for Mitsubishi in production trim was 110 or something. So I even laid all this data on IMSA. I said, so what can I say, guys? And, well, no, they're legal. We got a boost gauge on them. We know they're legal. Well, then you explain it. Then I can't. So there were two things we came up with. Was the Torsen, which is a mythical thing for the front wheel drive cars. We actually had Torsens, but the production guys would never let us put them in production. So we ran them in the race cars. And we told them so they were optional. And they were, because anybody that wanted to buy one from us through Rocket Parts, we'd sell them one. So anyway, so we had the Torsen. And I told Dave, come up with a cam, and so we looked at it, and we thought at that time what they were doing is they were measuring open and closing points and max lift. So Dave took those 3 points and then made a cam fit within them.
Optimized it.
And that became the W41 cam. So that's really there's the only difference between the W41 and the high output is that red cover that says made for Oldsmobile on it, because we had to go through GM legal for GM legal to say, yes, a unique camshaft is enough to call that a unique engine. So that's why we got the ability to make made of just for Oldsmobile. I forget what the right words were, but it says something on there. You probably know. Look at your...
Yeah. It says W41 right in the front.
Yeah, and it says something about made exclusively for Oldsmobile or something to those.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, because of the camshafts, we got to write that on that cover.
Wow.
Okay, so those camshafts are really the only difference between the 180 and the 190.
Okay. All right. No compression change or valve size or porting or anything?
Nothing.
Okay. Interesting.
Nothing. That's all the production guys would let us do. And it was based a lot on that we were already running it in IMSA, and we showed them, and they ran it. That also took the rev limit up to like 7,000 something. I forget exactly what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, and Bill Maher was a big part of this. Bill Maher was Marv Palmer. That's who it was, Marv Palmer. Big Marv Palmer. He was out of Chicago. And he was actually building engines for Macom, which is now Macom Auctions.
Yep.
Macom was a Chevy dealer in Chicago. They were running Camaros in Firehawk, the top class.
Oh,
So Marvin was building the V8s for him. So what do you do with a showroom stock engine? You blueprint the snot out of it, right? And so Marvin became very proficient at doing that on these V8s, and they make them with his team, usually one. So we got a hold of Marvin and said, what do you think about doing quad fours? And he said, wow, I'd love to do that. So he, and it was Amy Goodman, who was a beautiful looking woman, who was smarter than any of us put together. She was Marvin's right-hand person. And she was the calibration engineer, and she took care of everything. And she was at every race, and she was calibrating stuff. And that was the other thing we did. Everybody was cheating on the proms, you know. So we had, you know, everything we could in the prom. And Marvin was making just over 200 horsepower on the showroom stock motors. So that was enough that we actually won. I got some of the pages around here. We'll go in the shop when we're done here, because I got a lot more stuff from that era hanging up in the shop, because this building didn't get built until like 2005. But anyway, Marvin, Amy, the hackers, they were really the team behind all the quad four wins. And it's like, we won everything. You know, we got a lot of championships, a lot of races, and they used a lot of advertising to sell the quad four. And you know, the one thing that we never got across to them that really I wish we would have, we never broke a motor.
wow.
We never broke a motor. 24-hour races, whatever, we never broke a motor. Those things were...
That's an amazing statement. I mean, really, that's...
The only powertrain issues we had were the early Daikin clutches. The Daikin clutches, if a guy blew a 4 to 5 shift and put it back in third, the Daikin clutch would fluff. It would go all the linings would just blow right off as it overspeeded.
And part of that reason was the synchros were so good that you
Yeah.
did a 4-5 and missed the
And you
5
still
and
went
catch
right
the
into
third
third.
gate.
Yeah.
It would spin the. I mean, your pedal, the clutch pedal's flat on the floor, but you go 4-3 at $7,000 in fourth, and all of a sudden you're telling the clutch that, gee, let's go 12,000 or whatever. It would go. It will. The synchros were good enough. It would spin the clutch up that high. And Lloyd Arasumi was the Daikin guy. And oh, by the way, I know the guy that had the clutches and manual transmissions at the time. Me. Lloyd and I did a lot of work with that clutch at the proving grounds for production verification, but not that sort of thing. But that was the reason that you could fluff a clutch.
Mm-hmm. Well, there were two suppliers though, Daikin and Luke.
Yeah.
So the Luke clutches wouldn't do that. So then after that, we just made sure we always ran Luke clutches.
Okay.
And like Ted said, the transaxles were bulletproof too. We never broke a transaxle. Never broke an engine or a transaxle.
That's interesting.
Wow.
Before the Quad 4 went in production with the manual, they were looking at me to validate it.
Who was the supplier? The name escapes me.
Getrag.
Getrag.
But
It was a Getrag.
But how do you validate it? Well, Ted, that's your problem. Well, so what we had as a baseline was the Iron Duke and a 5-speed, and that was a different transaxle. I think that was Japanese, and so I took a car, went down on the proving grounds and just beat the hell out of it until it broke. I mean, side step clutches, starts over the Belgian blocks and all sorts of abuse to do something to break this thing. And it took several hours. About got sick, but I finally broke a CV joint, and then hauled it back to Lansing, and then got in a quad 4 with a Gatrog and went down, and I spent an entire day doing anything and everything I could think of to bust it, break it, do something. I couldn't. I drove it from Milford back to Lansing. And so I was pretty well convinced that, hey, I don't care what you do to this thing. I mean, wide open throttle, starts in 5th gear or whatever. You dream it up. I don't think you can break it.
Yeah, we couldn't, not with a quad 4, even, the higher horsepower ones, higher torque ones. So anyway, that kept going through the Calais. And then ultimately what we did, we knew the Achieva was coming. And the Achieva had a bunch of things that we thought were really going to help us. It had ABS, and it also had the new fuel tank. The new fuel system had a reservoir. And we were always having trouble with picking up all the fuel. As a matter of fact, that's my fuel tank story. Because we were running against all these guys running so fast, basically it was Hacker. Paul Hacker was not only an excellent driver, he was also excellent at race strategy. And a lot of times we won just because we pitted at the right time. Those guys had to pit an extra time because they were running out of fuel. And one of the things to enable Paul, Del Marco came up with the idea, the vent tube. The vent tube went down the filler neck of the tank and then ended right before the dome, the evap dome. Del says, well, what we could do is we could get a filler tube, run it all the way up to the top of the dome, and the whole dome would fill up with fuel and get an extra couple of gallons or whatever it was. So the other guy we had was Ken Van Avery.
Oh, yeah.
Ken was the guy that could get anything done inside production. Ken knew all the production, and he could talk anybody into anything. So he actually got with the fuel tank guys. They made a bunch of vent tubes that went up to the top, made us a bunch of fuel tanks. I forget how many. We had tons of them. We just handed out fuel tanks to everybody. So that got us going for quite a while. And the Rossi guys, they were getting tired of getting beat on basically fuel economy. So one time, I guess they went to a dealer and they bought some kind of fuel tank. I never saw the thing. And they took it to a race and they showed the inspector. And they showed the inspector, look at this fuel tank thing, go look at theirs. So the inspector actually did that. He had us pull a fuel tank out of a car. And so he's looking at it. And then he takes me aside and he says, the Rossi guys brought us a fuel tank for a Calais. And I'm looking at the fuel tank you got here and it's different. I said, different? He said, yeah, the vent goes all the way up. And we thought we had it hidden because in the rules it said you could fill the tank with foam. And maybe that's why we didn't have as much fuel starvation problems as other people's, because we did that. We filled the fuel tanks up with foam. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, how do you know Rossi has a quad 4 tank? And he just kind of looked at me and walked away. And I never heard anything else about it.
Well, the dome in the top of the tank was
was when you parked it with cold fuel and it got hot out, so it wouldn't.
It was for emissions.
Yeah, it was for emissions and for overflow.
Yeah, okay.
So we didn't care. I mean, that was running out right and quick,
Yeah, exactly.
Hour or so, and we're back in the pits, right?
Yeah.
We used up what we had. So anyway, that was one of the stories there. So we were getting ready for the Achievas coming, We got with the powertrain guys and we said, okay, what if we do this? What if we build a head in, what was it, 91? Because the Achieva came out in 92?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So for 91, the 91 KLA, let's build a small volume of cars and pull ahead all your new features for the Achieva so you guys get to run them down the production line and figure out, you know, any problems that might occur there and this kind of thing. And also, why don't you put these camshafts in this engine for us in these 200 cars? And, you know, I talked them into it. And so they went ahead with that. So they built the 200 cars. They were all red, International Series, with the W41, ABS, and the new fuel system. And so then we start running those cars, and we won again with those cars. And so that was good work to prepare for the Achieva. So the first use of the W41 was in those 200 cars in 91.
And those were Calais?
Those were Calais.
Okay.
Then the Achieva came, and we had it all, and we ran those for a year or so, and won with those also. So that was kind of the Quad 4 story. And also, we had, during that time period, the other thing we did with the Quad 4 was we built a GTU car. That was Mark Karwowski's project. And he designed up, we had Terry Satchel involved. Terry Satchel designed the chassis and the suspension for that car. And we built that up at Dell's shop. Dell got a shop over here on the south side of town off Kreitz Road, south of the expressway. That car got built there. And then Irv Hare tried to run that. Bilmar built the engines, and it just wasn't very successful. And then the next year, we actually got Team Highball, those guys who were running the AMC cars. They got involved and ran the GTU car for a year or two, but we never really, that was an underfunded project. It was probably just trying to go a step too far because we didn't have the money and the wherewithal to pull it off.
I didn't realize Dell had a shop here in town.
Yeah, Nucleus Enterprises, he called it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where
And then
all the international sedans and that stuff. Oh yeah, we also had Dave Jolly ran international sedan for us. Chuck Hemmingson did the, so there were a couple others besides the Firehawk, and we won them all. So the only one we didn't do well at was the SCCA Escort series. We ran the blue KLAs in that. It's Sunoco sponsorship, but again, just the way the rules were and stuff, we couldn't run with them, with the turbocharged cars.
Oh.
That was about the only place we didn't do well.
Do you think the success in motorsports was well used by the marketing and
Yeah, I
advertising?
can show you a bunch of stuff they had there,
Okay.
especially like the drag racing, all the stuff we did here. The IMSA stuff where we won the Daytona 24-hour both classes with the Aurora V8. I haven't got to that yet, but yeah.
Okay, good. What was that Aurora V8 similar to the IndyCar engine?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
There were two racing Aurora V8s. The first one, that's the cam covers from it in the center.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
That one was run in the IMSA cars and first in Calais, because we started that in 94 and they didn't want us to run the Aurora until 95 when it came out. So like Genelosi's car there, the Olivetti car, and they're really up there. The Bricks cars. Olivetti was still Trans Am stuff. He was running Chevy small blocks in that. But these cars here, Bricks Racing was the first one to run the Aurora V8 in IMSA. It was the white, purple, and gold car. With those cars right there. Yeah, and he's actually running ahead of the main competition, the Nissan.
Okay.
The Nissan. And again, these were the first Auroras winning at Sebring and Wayne Taylor's car with the Aurora V8.
Oh, that's
V8,
Wayne. Okay.
Winning at Sebring. Yeah,
Okay.
and there's the flywheel and camshafts that Porsche designed for the Quad 4. Not finished, but they came out of the Olds machine shop. Those are hollow camshafts.
Wow.
Blanks. Fine.
I remember that flywheel.
Yeah. Carl Bartel's guys did all that down in the Olds machine shop.
I sent him the order to do that. I sat at my desk and drew circles on a flywheel, and I said, "Hey, I wonder if this would work." And the next day, all of a sudden, we had a light and flywheel, and I thought, "Well, we got to spin it or something." And next thing I know, it's in your magazine. I'm like, "Holy mackerel, jeez!" Okay, well, that's neat.
So, Aurora V8.
This is cool
yeah,
stuff.
started in IMSA. And we did pretty well with that. We won the first IMSA classes with it and the Daytona 24-hour, both classes. That was the first time a GM car won both classes at Daytona, which official and the people made sure nobody knew about.
Herb Fischel was the motorsports guy equivalent at Chevrolet.
Chevrolet,
Of course,
yeah.
they know everything. They own everything. It's a little Oldsmobile over here. It's a pimple on their ass. They just want us to go away.
And actually, we were doing so well with the stuff we were doing, with a budget that was 1/4 of what Chevrolet had, that Fischel decided he had to eliminate us.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
It was more than no. So
Oh, yeah.
it was more than a perception.
He went way high up in GM, and this was like 1992,
Oh,
and they came at us like, "You guys are in marketing. What do you know about racing and engineering cars? You don't know anything."
is that right?
And he
Okay.
convinced upper management
Cut
that
the,
Fischel needed to develop the Motorsports Technology Group, MTG.
oh, okay.
So all of Oldsmobile, Buick, Pontiac, we were all sucked in by Fischel into the Motorsports Technology Group.
Under his,
So Fischel told us what we could do and what we couldn't do.
oh, no kidding.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Dang.
good way to kill the competition. Bring them in-house and make sure they don't know anything or do anything.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Wow.
So they had control over what happened with the Aurora V8. So the IMSA V8 came out of K-Tech
Yeah.
and the Motorsports Technology Group. Basically, we were there, Arlen and I and Vic, pushing that, we need to race this Aurora V8 because it's, again, Oldsmobile's engine. And the legal guy said, yeah, we could write Oldsmobile on it because it was a 4-liter and the North Star was a 4.5-liter. And again, that was enough parts to call it an Oldsmobile engine. So that's what we did, and we tried to focus on, again, the Aurora being Old's engine, and let people know this wasn't like, when they bought an Aurora, they weren't getting a Chevrolet engine or.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I probably am, but we developed the Quad 4, and then Marv, I think, was one of the people that went to Cadillac, I believe, to develop the North Star engine.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Pryor.
Okay. great.
Pryor was a big push behind Red Pryor.
Okay.
And that's his Cadillac, by the way, Red Pryor's.
Yep. Do you have a Trump sticker on it yet?
Yeah, not yet. I got the Trump bobblehead.
Okay, good. And how similar is the Aurora V8 4-liter to the 4.5-liter North Star? Is it?
Oh, it's the same thing, just
It,
smaller displacement.
okay, all right.
It's kind of like the W41 and the high output.
Okay.
Just enough parts to get it by.
I
And
see.
it was detuned.
Oh,
They made
okay.
sure it was only 250 horsepower.
Oh,
Yeah, because it had to be less horsepower than the Cadillacs.
What do you think
Okay.
it could have made?
Oh, I know what it could have been because we did it for the Shelby program. We'll get to that.
All right.
Joe Gusick was heavily involved with the Shelby program.
Yeah, he worked for me on that. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was in the body plant when he called and he said, "Hey, Ted, I need a bunch of VIN tags. Can you get them?" Oh, I don't know. Well, I'm going one. Oh, man, did people come unglued when I said I wanted a handful of VIN tags. Whoa! It's like it's radioactive.
So anyway, we got Herb's group to agree, finally, to build us an Aurora V8 for IMSA, and they did. And we won with that, and that was a very successful program. And while we were doing that, Arlen and I got involved with IndyCar and BMW, because that was the IndyCar kart split, all that fighting was going on.
Oh, yeah.
So the guys in Indianapolis were looking for their own formula, And one of the things they came up with, because there was interest from BMW, there was interest from Nissan, and Arlen and I kept telling them there's interest from Oldsmobile, when it was just Arlen and Weglarz were interested.
Well, small group. Small group will get things done.
So anyway, we worked with them, and BMW ultimately fell out, but the guy we were working with, he was a real card from BMW, the engineer they sent over. And anyway, we came up with a 4-liter naturally aspirated formula, and the idea being that we were going to model it against NASCAR, where the teams could build their own engines, or anybody could build engines for the IRL. Mm-hmm. Like even if you weren't a team, you could be Roush, and Roush could build engines for IndyCar. Okay. Or Speedway Engine Development Incorporated down in Indy, who we worked with a lot. They could build it. It was basically like an open formula rather than you leased your engines from Cosworth, which is like what was happening at that time, and nobody knew what was in an engine.
But all the engines, be it Infiniti or BMW or Olds or whatever, fit a particular set of guidelines.
Yeah, it had to be 4-liter,
4-liter
double overhead cam, 4-valve.
Normally aspirated.
Normally aspirated.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it was like NASCAR, 350.
Right.
And everybody build your own. And then, IndyCar or IRL, Indianapolis Racing League, would enforce all this stuff. So that, again, we got back with Fischel's group and Speedway Engine Development Incorporated. I can't remember his name. It'll come to me here in a little bit. They were really good people down there. And we did a lot of work with them. And those 2 cam covers on the outside are from 2 of the IRL engines, which was a totally different engine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And the only production part we ran in the Indy engines was the chain, because the timing chains were unbelievably robust. I forget the company that was making them, but again, Pryor knew all about them because they were obviously in the North Star. So we actually run that because the RPM limit for that was 10.5. So we were running 10,500 RPM.
Is that a link chain or a roller?
No, I forget. Okay. I think it had to be a roller. It was a double roller or whatever, but that chain was bulletproof. So that was the only part that overcame. And you can see there, Rick Vogelin and I forget the guy they had. Kimball is his name. Kimball, or maybe the guy before him, was doing cutaways of the engines. So I got the posters that Rick Vogelin did with the cutaways and engine shots. He made the thing look good.
Oh.
But that engine never lost a 500.
Wow. That's
all impressive. All the years we ran it. We ran it the first year, 1997, won. And we won every Indy 500. We lost 1 IRL race. We lost 1 to Nissan.
And that was over how many races?
I forget.
Several seasons?
Oh, it was many seasons, yeah.
Wow.
That's incredible.
But through the advent of, through those years, you started at 4 liters?
And it always stayed 4 liters.
4 liters. But it got smaller over time, didn't it? Didn't it go to... didn't it?
Well, ultimately, yeah, and then they phased out and went to other engines, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I was,
Because like the Cosworth engine that I did when I wound up at Powertrain was smaller, yeah.
okay. Were all
was
the,
the Chevy
were all
Cosworth.
the Aurora Indy
Always
car
4
engines 4 liters?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's what
all
I
right.
remember, yeah. Speedway Engine Development still got a couple,
Oh,
I think. Well, they had them a few years ago. I haven't been down there in a while. So that's where we raced the Aurora V8. So during that time, John Rock was general manager at Olds Marketing. And it was a bleak time, really, because before, you know, they brought in all these marketing people about 1994. Oh yeah, this was before John Zarella came in. Ron Zarella.
oh, I'd forgotten him.
Remember that guy?
I remember the name. I don't never had any interaction with him.
Oh my gosh. That was again, right, that was Oldsmobile going in the can. That was it, right then, as soon as they brought those guys in. Because Zarella was at Bosch and Lohm.
Oh, that's right. He was the.
And he was the marketing maven. He knew marketing. He knew everything.
He could sell a contact lens. He could sell an Oldsmobile.
His claim to fame, and this is the facts the way I know him. His claim to fame was Bosch and Lohm was selling contact cleaner in a big bottle, like a gallon container or something. So his idea was, well, we could sell it in a lot smaller containers at a price that would like double or triple what we charged for the big container. So we could make a bunch more money just by repackaging this stuff. And they did. And Bosch and Lohm made a bunch more money. So now he can sell Oldsmobiles.
So therefore,
And I'm not kidding. They hired a bunch of people who were marketing dog food, cereal, you name it, anything in a grocery store. They bring these people in, and these people are here to tell us how to sell Oldsmobiles.
Doesn't quite sound like
Betty
it worked.
Genghis could probably tell you more about that, because she was part of that. She was,
we'll see Betty tomorrow.
yeah.
And Betty's bringing Mary Casey in. And
Oh yeah, I know Mary. Yeah.
Well, we knew Mary from engineering, but then I lost track of her, and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Apparently, she went to marketing or something.
No. Oh yeah. She was the Cutlass Classic person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Things you
I
learn.
remember that. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, she was there. So that they can tell you more about that. But you know, I remember asking these people, how many people take out a loan to buy a box of cereal?
Yeah, good point.
You know, how many people buy a 30-year-old box of cereal and restore it? How many people bring their boxes of cereal to shows and show them off? You know? I said, don't you guys see there's a difference here? You know?
Do you know who the whiz kid was at the top that brought these people in?
Zarella.
Zarella?
This was all his stuff.
Oh my gosh.
They were gonna market Oldsmobile. And I learned then and there that marketing is just magic. It's sleight of hand.
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. And it's like, fine, if that's what you want to do.
But
fine.
you know, there are some organizations that have done exceedingly well at marketing, and I guess in the automotive sense, I think of Volkswagen as in some of the early Beetle ads they had, and how they struck a chord with the public.
But it was always something about how good the car was.
Exactly.
What did these people do for Oldsmobile? It's not your father's Oldsmobile.
That's the one that always sticks. I mean, you want to make your house look bigger? Park a small Volkswagen in front of it.
Yeah.
You know, everything about their ads were cute they
How
were
does
to
the man who
point.
drive the snowplow get to the snowplow?
Yeah, how does the guy, exactly, how
Right,
does
they
the,
had this Volkswagen driving through the snow. They had the snowplow.
smart, I mean, these
I mean-
these old crowds are pretty smart,
But
whoever
that
it
was
was.
years and years and years before.
And one of the things I want to touch on with Betty, and maybe she can help me understand after several decades of ignorance, why did Oldsmobile stick with Leo Burnett Advertising, I think out of Chicago, year after year after year, when there's many good organizations around that probably have fresh, bright ideas that could be used?
I don't know. Leo Burnett was, yeah, you're right. It was always Leo Burnett. I got a bunch of their ads that they did, newspaper ads in the shop.
Okay, all right. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was going on. And then somehow John Rock got approached by guys, Don Rager, I think was the guy's name, that was convinced Shelby that Shelby ought to build another sports car. And Don Rager was the guy really behind all this.
Oh,
And he had, who was it, Eric Lundquist, I think. Somehow he got Eric Lundquist involved in this deal too. And anyway, these guys got Rock thinking we could put the Aurora V8 in this sports car.
that was not Shelby's initiative. It was somebody convincing Shelby they. Okay.
Yeah, Shelby was an old guy, I think, at this time.
Okay.
And he was hardly involved at all.
Oh, okay. That car was built in Las Vegas?
Well, yeah, ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like, how are we going to do this, Because you look at Vic's group and he had me, and that was about it. And I went out, they sent me out to Shelby's place, and he had 2 engineers. That's it. And I was kind of thinking, how's this all going to work,
Yep.
And that was one of, I think, the big mistakes I made while I was there at Oldsmobile, was I went along with this whole thing. Looking back on it, I should have really came back to John Rock and said, look, John, this is all just a mirage, really. I don't think these guys got enough people and facilities to build a car. But there was enough salesmanship going on and everything like this, and so we got involved in it. Okay, and so they cut a deal. They cut a deal between us and this some Shelby group that Don Rager and his guys came up with, and we were going to supply Aurora engines for Shelby's car. So it fell on to me to head the program up. And so we did the best we could. And originally it was looking like it might not be too bad, because we found, again, I got Bill Maher involved because, production engines, making horsepower and all this. So between Bill Maher and myself and Pryor, went and talked to Pryor and all this, and we came up with the only thing we had to change in the engine was to retard the camshaft. I think it was 3 degrees. So we went out to the camshaft company up in Muskegon that was building cams, talked to them, can you guys, relocate the dowel pin, move the camshaft back so many degrees. Yeah, we worked all that out. Magner was the one who was going to calibrate it. Amy Goodman and Marv Palmer were the ones that built the engines, got them running, and we were 320 horsepower.
Wow. With only retarding the cam 3 degrees?
And a new cal, yeah.
And a new cal. And that was up from what,
250.
Wow.
That's how much they were choking the engine.
Holy moly. Was that CWC in Muskegon?
I forget.
Okay.
And Guzik was big in that one. He was the one who knew the people there and got all that to happen. That was a Guzik job.
Okay.
So we got with Shelby's guys, all right, what's this car gonna weigh? You know? And they said 2,450 pounds. I said, okay, fine. So we went, how are we gonna prove proof of concept? So I got with Marv, and I said, Marv, what you need to do is buy us a late model chassis that we can put this Aurora V8 in, and this 6-speed, I think it was a Tremec 6-speed transmission that they were going to use. And we'll get the wheels and tires those guys are going to use, and we can weight this thing down to 2,450 pounds, put the motor in it, put the gear ratios. Arlen and I picked the gear ratios for the thing. Got the transmission built properly and the final drive the way we wanted it. Put Marvin's engine in it, took it down to a drag strip down in Florida somewhere, Bradenton, I think it was near. Because by then, Marvin had moved his shop down to Daytona Beach.
Oh, okay.
And we showed Shelby that with the engine we had, and that 320, that's from memory. So, you know, maybe it was 310, maybe it was 315, but it was just over 300 the way I remember it.
Okay.
We showed them that we could meet their targets. And I can't even remember what they were, but they were in the 12s, 12 second and a quarter mile like that. So that was a pretty quick car back then. In
Pretty
the 90s.
respectable, yeah.
So that we thought, okay, that ought to do it, you know. Shelby's guys came back and said, well, you got to put a supercharger on it.
Huh?
I'm going, no way in hell are we putting, you know, there's no way we've got the people and the facilities to engineer a supercharger on this thing that isn't going to blow the engine up. And blowing engines up isn't the idea behind putting the Aurora in here, right? It's to show people this is a great engine.
Yeah.
So no way, Jose, we doing this. So we talked them out of that. We wound up building, I forget how many engines with the cams back. We bought engines from Cadillac or Powertrain, whatever you want, the Livonia plant. Pryor helped set that up from what I remember. And we had them put the camshafts in them. Oh no, that's right. No, wait a minute. I forgot a part here. We had to go to the military group, GM Military, to get the engines. GM Military bought the engines because at that point in time, GM Military had the okay from the corporation to sell GM parts to like people that used them to build military vehicles.
Okay.
So we had all the engines bought by GM Military, and they ordered them with the cams in and all that. So all the engines sat at GM Military. And while this thing was going on, you know, Shelby's people, Rager and all this, they wanted the engines in Las Vegas. And I kept telling the military guy, Steve was his name, I can't remember his last name, said, Steve, don't send them motors till you got cash, because those guys are crooks. I'm telling you, they're crooks. Don't send engines until they send you cash. Okay. And then by that time, I had taken a job. Kerner got me a job at the truck group, so I was leaving Oldsmobile.
Oh.
And that program kept going on. Gary Arnson was involved too on the body side. So like I was doing the engine and Gary was helping them with the body, getting them all this stuff like there were Pontiac Grand Am backup lights and gauges and switches and, you know, whatever he could do. Gary knew all the body stuff, so
sure.
He was helping them with that. And they used Corvette suspension, and that's one of the first styling drawings of the car on the left.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
And then the picture is what the production cars looked like.
Gotcha. Okay.
But we got it that far that when I was involved, the first production cars were just coming out of the factory at Las Vegas, but the certification was just going on and on to get them certified because something was happening in 2000 and 2001 that, oh my gosh, there's no way we could meet certification after that. And Magner got hired back from Eaton to do the certification, and him and Baker were out at the desert doing the certification work on the engine, the car and the engine.
Robin Baker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Robin Baker and Ed Magner were doing that work. And they finally got that done, and that's what was part of the delay to get the thing to production, and everybody was getting upset because it was getting too late. And why didn't it have a supercharger on it? People gotta have a supercharger.
Jeez. Wow.
So, and then I left 1998. Yeah, I finally left Oldsmobile. That was after they shipped us down to the Rensen too. So
Oh my gosh.
for about 4 months, I was driving back and forth from here to the Rensen every
I
day.
didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a heck of a nasty drive.
Yep. And Steve finally succumbed to sending all the engines to Shelby. And they never paid for one.
You're kidding.
Dang.
Oh my gosh. Okay, and then a couple of years later, I'm working at the truck group.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a call from Larry Sessoms. Remember Larry Sessoms? You're lucky you don't remember him.
Oh, I don't.
He was GM legal staff.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with Larry to set up the contract with Shelby
Oh,
and all that.
oh, okay.
So I get a call from Larry. I don't know, this was about 2001, 2002. Shelby's suing Oldsmobile
Huh.
for breach of contract. Yeah. And that's when I found out they got the engines without paying for
Wait.
So what were they suing with?
Aren't we backwards here?
them. They were just saying that we didn't supply all the stuff that they thought we should have supplied. All the engineering and the supercharger and
Amazing.
yeah.
I presume that
So
suit didn't go
I
to
got
that.
to write a letter.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I probably don't have copies anyway, but I wrote a letter that just went through all the stuff that those yahoos did. They had the engines and all this stuff, and there's no way that this should be taken to court. So I wrote this big long letter, sent it to Sessoms, and I guess Larry took care of it because it never did go anywhere. But that was kind of the end of the Shelby program.
How
So
many-
when they say Shelby's Cobra, yeah, he was a snake. Or at least Rager's guy. But you know, Shelby, no, I won't go there. I mean, he would tell stories and you would just go shake your head that, well, if he would do that to these people, why are we dealing with this guy? You know? Because he would tell stories of all this women he ripped off and companies he ripped off. And anyway,
There are some people I think in motorsports that are not immune to that sort of situation because they want
so anyway, I think I took you through everything. It was up to 1998. I started working at Olds in 78 and I left in 98.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea how many Shelbys were produced, the Series 1s?
Yeah, a couple of hundred, I think.
Oh, okay, not many.
Not many. And that's why I'm pretty sure it was like 300 engines or something. It was like $5 million that they absconded with. And Larry said, no, we're just going to let them get away with that. He didn't want to go after them for that.
Well, there probably isn't any.
He said, we'll just look bad if we go after them for that. I said, that's your call, you know.
Yeah.
So we never.
I've got a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
First one, of course, is biased to the W41 and the Achieva. You mentioned kind of that you had oversight of them producing, at least in like 1991, putting the camshafts in. So what was the approach to creating the W41, the Achieva SCX that was sold to the public? Because I know there were some other changes as well, and this might not be all-inclusive, but smaller wheels and the Beretta rear axle.
No, that all stayed the same because, you know, we had 14-inch wheels on the Calais. And we were limited. You couldn't change the final drive in the transaxle, and you couldn't change the gear ratios. Right? So one of the reasons the car was as quick as it was, because it had the small diameter tires, so the N over V was better, right? You put the bigger diameter tires on, the car would slow down.
Makes sense.
So was it a tire change, not a wheel change?
No, it was wheels and tires. We went with 14-inch wheels. All the other Achievas were 15s.
Oh, I see. It was 15 down to 14. Okay.
Yeah, we stayed with the 14s.
So it was you that kind of drove that happening to the SCX as well.
Yeah.
And then is there anything else besides that? I know when we
the
spoke
stuff
before,
that
you
got
mentioned
pulled ahead, the ABS and the fuel system. But the engine and tires and wheels, that was it. And it was a problem because BF Goodrich said they were going out of production with those 14-inch BFGs that we had on there at the beginning.
Oh.
So those, yeah, but I just decided, no, we got to stick with this. That was it. But, well, that's one story that didn't get. Those 3 cars there,
Yep.
that's the end of the Nelson Ledges longest day back then. And I think that was 93. And the reason we did that was once the Motorsports Technology Group took over, I didn't want to move down to Warren. There was no way I was moving to Warren. So Larry Lyons was our chief engineer at that time. So
I remember Larry, yeah.
we created, what would you do next for the Achieva SCX? What would be the next one? So those 3 cars are what would have been the next ones. Okay, so those had disc brakes all the way around. We designed a disc brake upgrade for the rear axle. They had 15-inch tires and wheels on it. And I forget what else we had. And so we put all that stuff together. And we had the hackers enter, I think it was 93, yeah, the 24-hour race kind of as a durability test. And all 3 cars made it through the 25 hours, finished 1, 2, 3 in their class. The only thing that was quicker than us was, remember this, the most ugly car ever produced, the Consigliere. It had the mid-engine Chevy in it, the Consigliere.
I remember the name. I'm trying to
Yeah,
bring
it
up
was a
a
real ugly thing. They had one of those there in the prototype class, and that finished ahead of us.
Wow.
And why didn't those changes then? Like, why didn't the XCX continue?
Because we couldn't
Do you
get
know?
the production guys to do it. They gave up on it. So that was the end of that program. That was as far as it went. We had it all validated and ready, we thought, and the production guy says, no, we're not doing that for you.
Yeah.
Not for that few cars.
That's too bad.
There was one, that was my idea of red, white, and blue.
Sure. So cars like that got raced, I presume was it who owned those cars? Were they given to the hackers or
Yeah.
Okay, and so I presume they got sold off or whatever?
I don't know what happened to those cars. Those we might have kept as GM. Those probably got scrapped because they weren't, quote, saleable vehicles, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So those probably got scrapped. But yeah, the hackers got left with a few cars. I don't know what they did with them. The hackers, a lot of people got left with cars. Yeah, and this, there might be some banners or something in here. This was, I don't even remember what all's in here. There might be some stuff that might be interesting. Oh, that's,
wow.
Don't have an appetite for winning. Our attitude is all you can eat.
yeah, that was one, the feeding time at the zoo. This was Sebring.
Jen Losey's cars?
Yeah, the Trans Am cars.
And who?
Oh, yeah.
Who were the drivers?
Well, it was Darren Brassfield and Irv here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember Irv.
Irv.
Okay.
Yeah, Brassfield and Genelosi.
Okay, raced against him a bunch. Yeah, oh yeah, Paul, okay, talked to him a while ago.
Yeah, that's his car up there. Welburn did that drawing back in the day.
That's a cool poster.
Oh, like when we were at Le Mans. Can tell you that story. That was,
I didn't know we ran a car at Le Mans.
yeah, the Wayne Taylor's car, that one there.
Oh,
And it was, oh, here you go. You don't want one of these. You don't want one of these. These have been rolled up for 40 years.
Oh wow, yeah, there's the Achieva.
You want a couple? That's when Ken Van Avery was really following after him then, and they put those mag wheels on. That was one of the things that, again, Guzik came up with. You see all those cars, we were always running Youngblood wheels. They were magnesium, cast magnesium centers and spun aluminum rims.
oh,
And those were special made for all the Calais and the Achievas. And they weighed 13 pounds.
oh my gosh.
And putting 4 of those on a Calais improved the 0 to 60 time by, I think, 0.3 of a second.
Oh my God.
That's a lot.
Wow.
That just kind of showed me
Rotating
the
inertia.
importance of, keeping the wheel weight down. I mean, if you want to make a car faster, you put lighter wheels on it. It just makes a huge difference, a huge difference. Yeah, you're up. All I gotta do is figure out how to get them back.
So can I ask the story from Le Mans?
Pardon?
Can I ask the story that you mentioned that you hadn't told?
Oh, that was just about going to Le Mans. We got Wayne Taylor was really interested in going to Le Mans, and I came back and convinced the guys at Oldsmobile that we ought to give them a little bit of money to make it possible. So we did, and I think it was like 50 grand or something. It wasn't a lot of money, and that was our stake in it. And he took the car that won at Daytona because it won Daytona, then it won the Sebring 12 hours, so we won, quote, the 36 hours of Florida, as they called it.
Oh,
So we won both of those, and so why not go to Le Mans? Took the car to Le Mans, and it wasn't doing bad, but those guys, again, that was the first time they had gone to Le Mans. And the gearbox, the Hewland gearbox, everybody knew except us, Wayne Taylor's guys, that there were 2 ring and pinion ratios. I guess it was a 9-tooth pinion and a 10-tooth pinion. And the 9-tooth pinion wasn't strong enough to run at Le Mans for 24 hours. Oh, that's what those guys had. So it went pretty well until the pinion said that's enough. So the pinion gear broke, and that put us out of the race. So it wasn't anything to be proud of. But that was our Le Mans story. One time I went there. That's why I got the poster.
Le Mans is tough on transmissions, engines, drivetrain.
Yeah, it's tough on everything. That's why it's such a big deal.
We rebuilt transmissions several times during the 24 hours.
And especially because the transmissions were so far behind the engines at that time.
I remember the engine was so down on compression on both the cars that towards the end of 24 hours, they'd hardly restart after fueling them. Crank and crank and crank and finally fire back up. Chris Economaki. Remember old Chris?
I got some. I don't know if you guys really need to see them, but like I say, I've got binders and stuff from the 2 Porsche projects in there.
Oh, wait a
maybe
minute.
some other
Does
stuff.
this go in there too?
No, I was giving those to
Oh,
Sly.
okay. Cool.
Well, I've got one last question.
Oh, no,
It's-
keep going.
It's pretty general here. Do you have any like specific racing stories that come to mind, or any fun anecdotes that you'd like to share? I mean, you spent so much time with it, and I can assume there was stuff that went super well, stuff that went awry, and just memorable events over the course of your career.
Well, I told you the one story about almost, the fuel tanks.
Mm-hmm.
We had this French kid that was a intern student, right, through MSU, and somehow he wound up with us in the race group when we went to Watkins Glen. We called him Frenchie. And he was always telling stories about swimming in the ocean, the big waves. I could swim in the ocean, so when we go to Watkins Glen, I'm going to swim across the lake. I just kept telling him, no, you can't swim across the lake, no way. So anyway, we were staying at the Watkins Glen Inn and eating dinner. And the hostess comes up and she says, one of your guys is trying to swim across the lake.
Okay.
So I knew exactly who it was. So I said, well, how can we save him? And she says, well, I can call the sheriff. This happens every once in a while. And I said, yeah, please call the sheriff. So they sent the sheriff out after him, and he didn't want to get in the sheriff's boat.
Oh, geez.
And the sheriff finally convinced him he needed to get in the boat, and he got in the boat, and he was shaking. It was like, because that lake is over 600 feet deep, I think, and the temperature never gets, 50 degrees or something, as warm as it gets. So, you're hypothermia, you're out of it, So that was another one, and then, the Shelby stuff I already told you about, how screwed up that whole thing was. Oh yeah, we built a chassis. Again, we had Terry Satchel design a NASCAR road race engine chassis for us. So Del Markle and his guys built it, and it got painted all up at Matheny's place up here. And we took it for the first time to Watkins Glen. We got an engine from Richard Jackson, who was running Harry Gant's cars. So Richard lent us an engine. Irv Hare was going to drive it. So we got it, and we qualified halfway decent at Watkins Glen. So Sunday morning, Richard Jackson himself, is going to set the valves for us. So he goes and checks all the valves, sets all the valves on his engine, puts it back together. What nobody remembered was he plugs up, when he does that, he plugs up the oil return passages with rags so that anything falls, it doesn't go down in the engine. Well, he forgot to take the rags out. So there went our whole project up in smoke. As his thing just...
Things you can laugh about later.
Richard felt like... Because there's another story there. Richard and his brother... Leo. It was Leo Jackson. Richard Jackson was Leo's brother. Leo was the engine builder. Richard Jackson also ran a NASCAR team using Leo's engine. But Leo ran Precision Products, which is still in business selling racing parts, very high-end racing parts. He had his machine shop that was just amazing. That's where the NASCAR engines got built. So anyway, the NASCAR guys in the late 80s were complaining like mad about the Chevy engines because they were running basically the stock blocks. And the camshafts were failing, and they were having to go to such exotic materials because the cam was so close to the crank you couldn't increase the base circle or the casting really very much to get a bigger, stronger piece, so they were going to all these super exotic materials to try to make a camshaft last. And it was costing people huge money and huge headaches, obviously, when the engine broke. And they were also having some other problems with just, they were going beyond what a stock block can put up with. So again, Arlen and I got together and we decided, we could probably fix a lot of that stuff by doing a new block. So again, Arlen, knowing everybody, he knew Dick Maskin down at Maskin's, the casting place that was doing all the cylinder heads and blocks. So we got with Dick Maskin, and he said, well, if you guys can design the block, I'll pay for the tooling.
Wow.
As long as I can be the sole supplier.
Oh, okay.
I said, okay, that sounds good. So I went and I talked to Bob White. And Bob White was an unbelievable Oldsmobile engineer. He was Scottish. He actually worked for Rolls-Royce before he got to Oldsmobile. So he knew engines in and out. So I went and I talked to Bob and I said, Bob, you got a guy, maybe a designer that could work overtime to work with us to redesign the Chevy small block?
On your lunch hour or whatever.
And Bob says, yeah, sure, we got people that can do that for you.
What do you do? Well, you're raising the cam in the block?
So we got Ron Pike, I believe, I remember the designer's name was Ron Pike, agreed to work overtime, during the week, weekends. So we got Leo Jackson up here, who knew everything that was wrong with the Chevy block. And we got Arlen, who knew everything that was right about all the Ford stuff. And we sat down and we made a list of all the things we wanted to change, and that was raise the cam in the block. And then Arlen, like he said, well, we could just use the Ford chain because the Ford chain's got 2 more links in it than the Chevy, so we could just raise it that much and we don't have to design a chain.
Very good.
And on and on and on and on, and Maskin obviously was involved. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Then we're gonna make the deck thicker. Okay, yeah, make the deck thicker, improve the oiling system. We went to what the priority oiling was. First you oil the crank, not the lifters. So we made a whole bunch of changes like that. Ron Pike drew it all up. Maskin paid for the tooling. Maskin cast a bunch of them, and it was the rocket block. Well, Fischel found out we were doing that.
Oh, geez, here we go again.
So I took the first block casting down to Atlanta, showed it to all the NASCAR engine builders, and they was going, oh man, this is what we've been asking Chevy for years. This is fantastic. They all loved it. Fischel called NASCAR and said, no way you're approving that rocket block.
No kidding.
Which is another reason we got drug into the MTG group.
Amazing.
We were just too much, right? Because, like I say, our budget was a quarter of what theirs was. And so I got this block done for paying Ron Pike overtime.
Amazing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
That's all it cost Oldsmobile.
Now, Maskin turned into Dart, right?
Yeah.
Dart.
Well, he was Dart.
Oh,
yeah.
he was Dart. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's since passed away. But, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff we were doing, And, Fischel just couldn't have us making them look bad. So that was the end of that. That was the other one. You was talking another funny story was Fischel kept start calling us the enemy within. And that was after they wanted me to lie to SCCA over the availability of the 6-cylinder cylinder heads. And I told them no. And so Fischel called us that in one meeting. Genelosi found out about it. So the next Trans Am race, all the Oldsmobile Trans Am cars had the enemy within.
Oh, no kidding. Whoa.
Well, that didn't cause me any problems.
Jeez.
And here's another good one. You see this little guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That little guy is here because He was at the 1997 Indy 500. What we did was, for the pace car, when we did that pace car up there,
Was that an Aurora pace car?
that was the Aurora pace car, yeah.
Okay.
We did that too. And then we were, for 97, went the first race with the Aurora V8. We were the pace car with the Aurora. And that's what got into the, right there, pace car, race car, your car.
Oh, I see, yeah, yeah.
That was all part of that. So because the way the Indy traditions were, for the parade on Saturday, you were supposed to supply a bunch of convertibles. Well, in 1995, Oldsmobile had 0 convertibles. So I came up with the idea, we'll invite the Oldsmobile Club of America to pick 33 of the finest classic Oldsmobile convertibles, and they will get invited to be in the Indy 500 parade and bring their cars.
Oh, how cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So Gary Arnson said, well, we can make one convertible. So Arnson got a hold of an Aurora and cut the roof off.
Just like that.
Yeah. He got Demmer and all that to do it, painted up and all that. So we had one convertible, Aurora, that was in that parade. I don't know what happened to that car. Ask Vic what happened to that car.
Okay, no, that really wasn't a convertible.
No, it was just an Aurora
open,
sedan with the roof cut off.
It was an open car.
Yeah. And that led the parade of all the other 33 cars.
Oh, I see.
And there's pictures of these guys, you know, because all of the 33 drivers ride in a convertible. So there's guys still got the driver's name on their convertibles
Oh, is that
from
right?
the parade.
Oh, cool.
And they came, we had a special place for them set up in the infield at Indy, which was the Oldsmobile hospitality tech. And on every table was one of these guys blown up. So that guy has 1997 air in it.
Wow.
Oh, no kidding. It hasn't been deflated?
It's been up on my shelf since 1997.
No kidding. I was
Yeah.
looking at this earlier, obviously, and I was thinking, I can imagine Dennis blowing this up this morning.
Nope, I didn't blow that up.
Wow.
One of our secretaries blew, and her daughter blew them all up. I invited her along to help out, you know, with that, and she thought it was the greatest thing ever. I mean, Oldsmobile gave her a trip and her daughter to the Indy 500, and she got to play hostess, and she thought that was great.
Cool.
And we had all those convertibles parked around the tent, and it was really a big show in 1997, Oldsmobile at the Indy 500.
Well, that's good.
Wow.
Well, if you stop and think about it, didn't Olds get started in 1897?
Yeah,
So it was kind of like a centennial celebration.
yeah, it was all year because we had the 100th anniversary thing.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Well, that's cool.
it was all a big deal in 1997, yeah.
First American car company to get to 100 years.
And it still ought to be around. It's just like I say, you just look back and you can see what happened to it. 1984, Roger Smith, Zabarella,
Yeah.
1994 or whenever that happened. It was just...
Didn't have to happen.
Anyway, let me show you through the shop. There's some interesting stuff there.